Hi, my name is Jeff Esterly. I'm with the Army Corps of Engineers, and this is part 2 of the Kentucky Education for Dam Safety, the KEDS workshop. And I'll be giving a introduction to emergency action plans. So the purpose of emergency action plans are to minimize property damage and loss of life. And so these plans are the responsibility of the dam owner. They're not it's their responsibility to produce them, to update them, keep them current, distribute them to the downstream EMAs, other local officials who are involved in flooding recovery efforts and things downstream. So, but totally the responsibility of the individual dam owners. So whether that's a private citizen or a federal agency, it is the dam owner's job to have these plans assembled and distributed. And really what they are, they're procedures for that dam owner to follow when there is an incident at the dam or a failure or some other large uncontrolled release of water. So basically times when the dam can cause downstream consequences, they want to get those notifications out and then take actions to lessen the impacts that the dam is having on that flood event. But there's one thing that the EAP does not contain, and that is individual evacuation plans. So it is only for the dam owner. The dam owners, whether they're federal agencies or private citizens, do not have evacuation authorities. That falls solely on the state, county, local, EMA community. So the only portion for Corps of Engineers standpoint that they are responsible for doing evacuations immediately downstream of the dam. Recreation areas, tailwater areas, things like that that are under their control and on the federal property. But beyond that, they have no evacuation authority to take on. And what these do is they provide, the local emergency managers and the first responders with some dam risk information, some mapping tools, which are becoming more and more important, and we'll get to that later on in the presentation. And really, it's all intended to enhance the emergency response and evacuation to make those timely. So, the faster we can get notifications out, the quicker people can evacuate, secure their property and themselves from harm, and the consequences are therefore lessened. And so it's got information and tools for those community leaders, risk managers, so they can communicate some flood risk to the individuals that are under their authority in their areas and increase some of that flood risk management. As things are kind of going, the mapping tools are becoming more important. And so, we want to grow the general public awareness and understanding of dam flood risks so those individuals can effectively prepare for those events and appropriately respond to emergency management officials when those warnings go out. So later on in the resources presentation, I'll go over the inundation mapping tools, which are now being made public. Before federal agencies held those pretty close to the vest and only distributed the inundation mapping to the local responders, to the EMA community, but now we're making those available to the general public. So the things that are in EAPs, it's just identifies potential emergency conditions, for that evacuation preparedness. There's really 3 reasons why a dam owner would activate an EAP. So that would be partial dam failure or a full dam breach, or an incident, which is a term that we use that means something's going wrong at the dam. They can be a wide range of things. They can be, very severe, very concerning to not so concerning, not that big of a deal. But if we are mobilizing large equipment and doing work on the dam, especially during some flood event, that's going to get people's attention. We're going to want to get that notice out to the downstream EMAs. From a Corps of Engineers standpoint, at least with our dams, they're very large. They have a lot of public visibility. And so when we do things, people notice, and there's a rumor mill quite often at our projects. And we like to try to get ahead of that and get the information out of what's going on so people have that information and they know. So if it is a very severe incident or something that could go south and turn into a partial or a full breach, we'll want to get that information out. So the second part, the incidents, can then develop into a full breach or a partial dam failure, and there's procedures in the EAP to elevate that notification and response. The other time is when there's usually a large release from the project. So during a very large flood event, when the storage of the dam is completely used up, then the water that flows into the reservoir will flow out of our spillways or uncontrolled spillways, or we release it through the conduit, either way. But during those times, we have basically stored all the water behind the dam that we can, and then we're going to let it go. Now that scenario I just kind of described is pretty specific to Corps of Engineers flood risk management dams. Other private state dams don't have a flood risk management mission, and so they typically will have a spillway to pass some designed flood events. And so when that's occurring, you could also see more water downstream than those folks downstream of that structure used to be seeing. So that needs to be relayed to the public much in the same way that we would for one of the Corps dams. And so within that, it's got procedures and actions to be followed and the proper notification messages. There's different ones for different types of events going to different groups of people, depending on how complex or large the project is. And then there's the inundation maps. They used to be contained within the same booklet of the AP. Now they've gotten much more extensive, typically tend to be more electronic products. So we have separate map atlases for our core dams, and then we have online mapping tools that I'm going to go through in the resources section that we can now distribute. Much more broadly, we can give the county EMAs and state EMAs the GIS coverages they need to incorporate into their all hazards plans or their statewide plans, however they see fit to use that information. So I think this may have been covered in an earlier presentation, but just kind of going over what we call hazard creep. So kind of emphasizing hazard classifications that are based only on consequences, not the condition of the dam. So dams can go from a low hazard to a high hazard, and the dam is still in very good condition. So there's no change in the condition of the dam, no change to the size of the dam, only changes to the downstream development. So in the pictures you can see on the right, the 1999 photo, downstream of this structure, there was really no residences, no permanent structures, nobody that could potentially lose their lives in a dam failure incident. So that was appropriately sized as a low hazard dam. But then flash forward 19 years, and there's a neighborhood downstream, looks like there's a community park. Typically community parks, recreation areas are not included for life loss and inundation zones for hazard classification, but permanent structures and residences are. So here is just an example of where a dam went from a low to a high hazard. Their engineering responsibilities and their emergency action plan responsibilities just increased a lot, and there was really no change to the dam, the property behind it, anything of that sort, only downstream changes. So, and then just to kind of reiterate, hazard classifications, if you're not familiar, a low hazard dam has no potential for life loss. Significant hazard dam has no potential for life loss, but high economic consequences. And then a high dam, if there is one person that could potentially lose their life, that makes it a high hazard dam. The Corps of Engineers doesn't have a lot of significant hazard dams. Our Ohio River low head navigation dams are significant because the loss of the lock itself is a significant economic loss. The dam could damage like a state highway or something, that would also potentially put it in a significant hazard category. Most Corps of Engineers dams pretty large, and so it's pretty cut and dry whether it falls into a low or a high category in most cases. There are 4 steps to an EAP, 4 basic steps. So there's event detection and level determination. So really the first person who sees an issue at the dam, what do they do? Who do they talk to? Who do they communicate to? What are their secondary actions? Things like that. There's notification and communication. Step 2, so that's once you know what's going on, who do you need to tell and how fast you need to tell them. Then once those proper notifications are made, then you head into expected actions, which are basically actions to help save the dam, to either slow failure or prevent failure of the dam. And then finally, some termination and follow-up. So once those notifications have gone out and you've issued warnings, that there is a problem, you have to follow that up to let folks know that the danger is over and the risk has alleviated. So going over each step just kind of briefly here. So step one, that's the event detection and level determination. So, you know, is it imminent failure or imminent release of water? That would be a level 1. And then if you have something that's happening at the dam, some sinkholes opening up, something going on, is that a rapid development or is it kind of slow? So there's sort of 3 different levels you can take. You know, level 1 being we need to make notifications as fast as possible. Rapidly developing kind of falls into a similar category. But then there's things after those steps you can do to try to arrest the failure and kind of the event level 2 actions as you look down the flow chart there. So just kind of emphasizing that there's different levels to a particular event and you should respond in different ways. The AP should outline those different responses appropriately. What those things could be: if you're having a big flood in the watershed, spillways flowing, dams filling up, you know, you want to pay extra attention, especially if you're discharging large amounts of water. Any post-earthquake seismic events, or some during normal times or during flood events, you can have sinkholes forming or depressions. That could be the beginning of a sinkhole, dam slope sloughing, collapsed outlet pipes, different things at the dam that where it can't function as it's designed, and that would be some other signs of distress. So for notification, so once that event level has been determined, then you need to let people know, make those proper notifications. And so kind of the same with the different levels of events. There can be different branches for these notifications. You know, some go, if it's a level 1, you would want to branch 1, go to the evacuation authorities. They should be the first priority for notifications. If it's more slower, you know, you might want to emphasize getting a hold of your engineering technical assistance folks, getting a handle on the issue before you make the notification, so that way you're making the proper notifications. You kind of know the extent of the event and what's going on, so you can then have a very concise, appropriate message to all the downstream stakeholders. And then a third branch could be if you have a public relations staff. So, you know, branch 2 is you're notifying your EMA partners, local authorities, but then a different branch for the general public and getting that notifications going. But then once you've made those notifications, so the focus now becomes saving the dam. What do you need to do to lessen or extend the time that it takes for the dam failure? That gives people a chance to evacuate, a chance to do what they need to do, or can you prevent it completely? Those now become the focus. And as those things worsen, you might want to make more updates. So if it's a slowly developing problem, but then all of a sudden things get worse, that you need to upgrade the notification to make those additional warnings. So the local EMAs, folks downstream know that the problem's not getting better, it's getting worse. And so you're emphasizing the urgency of the situation. And then depending on the features of the dam, contractors and suppliers, you know, you want to have those pre-identified. You don't want to be figuring out where I'm going to get large amounts of material, where am I going to get sandbags. You know, you don't want to be doing that research. So it's good for the APs to have those resources outlined, contact phone numbers, how are you going to pay for them, how are you going to get them there, sandbags, sand and gravel, pumps, geofabric. There's different ways you can attack problems developing. Mostly those kind of describe embankment dams, things like that. And then finally, termination and follow-up. So once you've made all these notifications, you've told everybody that there's this issue, they're seeing problems in the stream, they can see the water come up, but once things kind of cool off and the action kind of is over, so that's either, you know, the dam failure inundation wave has passed, the storm and, you know, the storage is empty behind the dam, storm event has ended, high water levels of the dam have receded, or you made some successful repairs, and so the issue is no longer an urgent reason or a reason for people to be cautious downstream, that, you know, everything's been repaired. And then once we're done, you want to do a review of what went well. So go over those procedures. Did people get notified in a timely manner? Was the message appropriate? Was it miscommunicated or misunderstood? That's typically what we find. You know, we think we're making appropriate messages, and then we find out sometimes that we, you know, said things a little bit inappropriately in general layman's terms. When I first started at the Corps of Engineers, we had never had a emergency spillway activate. So then we had, I think it was 2012, we had 6 or 7 of them activate within the same storm event. So we were kind of scrambling to properly follow those procedures. We actually revamped our notification procedures for spillway events as a result after that. So you could always do some reflection on what kind of went well and make improvements, because most instances, emergency action plans have not been activated for individual structures. So once you have an event, you can take those lessons learned, fix that particular dam CAP, and maybe apply it to other ones if you are a multi-dam owner or your state agency that wants to apply some lessons learned to other regulated dam owners. And just some places to get some resources. So not most folks listening probably aren't going to develop an EAP, but maybe you want to find out if something's been properly organized, it's being properly maintained. Some places to get information: the Association of State Dam Safety Officials. They support the state regulatory dam safety agencies, and they do a very good job on that. That probably has the most educational resources available on their website. They are very kind of down to layman's terms. It's not super technical for the most part. Lots of good stuff, lots of case histories, templates to use, things like that. Great site. You can also go to the Kentucky Division of Water's website. The Dam Safety Branch is organized under the Division of Water, and they have educational resources. There's the Dam Owner's Manual that they produce, and they also have some EAP templates to facilitate the development of emergency action plans. And the NRCS, so Natural Resource Conservation Service. If you have a dam in your area or your owner or on your property and you're in their program, there are educational resources that they have on their website, as well as some EAP templates to be used. And I think that is all. Thank you.